Hello everyone and welcome to Construction Scotland Innovation Centre's Apprenticeship Week webinar. My name is Kay Keenan and I am the Future Skills Manager at CSIC and I will be your host for the session. I am delighted to welcome a really dynamic panel today who all have roles and experiences within the apprenticeship landscape. First up today we'll hear from Brian Carmichael, Construction Director from Tigers, followed by Lewis Gale, who is the Meta Skills Business Development Manager at Skills Development Scotland. We'll then hear from David Wilkins, Head of Bedford College. And finally, we'll hear from Alana Carey, who is currently serving her apprenticeship with BAM. This year's theme for Scottish Apprenticeship Week is Business Backing Talent, which really does highlight the great things that happen when employers back talent through apprenticeships. Apprenticeships contribute so much, enabling employers to upskill and future-proof their talent pipeline. Before we start, I just want to go over some housekeeping with you. So this session will be recorded and available for you to download on the YouTube channel early by next week. You'll be on mute throughout the session, but if you would like to ask a question or leave a comment, please click on the questions in the control panel, type your question and press send. There'll be a couple of poll questions running throughout the session, which will appear automatically on your screen, and you'll have around 30 seconds to answer. There'll also be a Q&A session where you'll be allowed to put questions to any one of our panel. Your feedback is extremely valuable, so we will take all questions and comments on board. And if we don't have time to answer them all, we'll get back to you after the session. So first of all, I'm delighted to introduce Brian Carmichael from Tigers. Brian is a former construction operative who secured employment at Tigers 10 years ago with the aim to support young people into employment in the construction sector. Since then, he has taken on various roles within the business, which has included trainer, assessor, verifier and training manager, and now his passion lies with innovative training delivery, lifelong learning and supporting young people to develop their infinite potential. Welcome, Brian.
Hi everyone. Hi there. Sorry, just waiting on the camera coming on. Thanks very much for that, Kay. As Kay says, my name's Brian Carmichael, Construction Director at Tigers, and I am delighted to have been asked along by Construction Scotland Innovation Centre to speak during Scott At Week 2020-21, something I am incredibly passionate about, and we're going to be discussing business backing talent as part of the theme this week. Before I start, it's not letting me click on it, I'm afraid, so you need to give me a wee second. We just spoke about this before the call. Okay, apologies for the delay. I'm going to tell you a wee bit about Tigers' history. Tigers was founded on the 6th of March 2001. That's nearly 20 years ago. In fact, it's 20 years this Saturday, so I'd keep your eyes open on social media for a bit of a celebration. We initially started out with the delivery of employability programs such as Get Ready for Work, modern apprenticeships and business administration, but the business has really evolved since then. We now deliver over 30 apprenticeship frameworks across all levels from 4 to 9. And this includes the delivery of construction craft pilots and also the Civil Engineering Foundation apprenticeship. Many of you will know that Tigers were involved in a joint venture with Carillion. That produced over 1,000 modern apprentices over its lifespan, which, as we all know, came to an abrupt end, unfortunately, on the 15th of January 2018. On that day, we had 127 apprentices live, and it never escapes me how difficult it was to step into the room and told them they were all going to be made redundant. But their team rallied together with our partners. We managed to source employment for 98 of 127 of those apprentices. And that is something that I'm incredibly proud of for our business. Since the demise of Carillion, our business has experienced quite a bit of growth, especially within the construction side. And I put quite a bit of that down to how we conducted ourselves during that time. In fact, over the last 12 months, the overall business has experienced quite a bit of growth. We are now delivering across frameworks we've never delivered before. We're working with a whole host of new partners. We're working in new local authorities. And I would put this down to our culture shift. That has taken place over the last 3 or 4 years, and it's something I'm going to be speaking about over the next 3 or 4 slides. As a team, Tigers came together and we discussed and agreed a shared vision. That vision was for a fair and inclusive world where equal opportunities exist for individuals, families and communities. It's a big idealistic vision. It's something I'll probably never see in my lifetime, if I'm being perfectly honest. But it's something that, as a business, every decision we make should advance towards this. We also came together and agreed our values: integrity, curiosity, courage and love. And we base all our decisions on this. Now, as the leader of the construction team at the time, you can maybe picture their faces when we spoke about love as a value, sorry. And whilst there was many other people in the business who openly could say that about their colleagues, some of the guys felt it was a bit fluffy, so to speak, or romantic. When we discussed it in more detail, we agreed that this was about a love for working with young people, a love for working with people to help them to develop their infinite potential, a love for our work in general. Sometimes I think people are scared to say that in modern society, that they love our work. It's something I'm not scared to say, I can assure you of that. The other thing we came together and agreed was why we exist. It's a core part of our cultural shift, was understanding this. It changed our thinking from what we do to why we do it, i.e. why would Tigers think about delivering a civil engineering foundation apprenticeship as opposed to, you know, what would the revenue for that be? Now, let me be clear, being a private business, revenue is important. It allows us to exist, it allows us to support and, you know, and develop further people to, allows us to inspire and support further people to develop their infinite potential. But this is not why we do it. It's a result of what we do. Now, relationship-led practice sits at the heart of everything we do, from employer engagement to training delivery. We have now shifted our business to a whole person approach. And it's important for me to highlight here that as employers, we have a moral responsibility to ensure that our team are physically, emotionally, and psychologically safe. This is something I'll speak about in future slides, but I must again highlight that this can only be achieved through trust and relationships. That's a wee bit of an insight into our business and our journey over the last 20 years in regards to the delivery of apprenticeships. But we're also here to talk about Scott App Week 2020-21. And I wanted to ask a question: how can we inspire and support construction apprentices to develop their infinite potential? And I don't think I can really move forward until I tell you a wee bit more about my journey, because, well, to be perfectly honest, I was the one looking for the inspiration and support at one time. What influenced me to get into the sector? Well, I had a dad and a granddad, both engineers. I loved them dearly. I want to aspire to be them, but not work with them. And anybody that has worked with family will know what I'm talking about. I stepped into a career as a bricklayer's labourer at the age of 17, and I had some highs and some lows. I worked with some great people. I worked on some fantastic projects. I made a good living, to be perfectly honest with you, well paid. But I also felt the force of the last recession. I felt the force of being made unemployed due to it. I also had quite a life-changing experience. It's something I always reflect on when I'm speaking to my apprentices. Around 19 years ago now, I was involved in an incident on site which involved a diamond tip blade, still saw, coming into contact with my right cheek. And anybody that's worked with a piece of machinery of this kind will know the type of damage it could cause. I received plastic surgery to correct a lot of that damage to my cheekbone, you know, to some of the nerves, to the actual skin around my face as well. And needless to say, I was hurt both physically and psychologically. A young man from Easterhouse with a 3-inch scar on his face. I knew this was going to be a challenge going forward. Feeling devalued, On my return to work, believe it or not, I actually opened up to a colleague, a bricklayer. And when I opened up to him, do you know what he said to me? He says, don't worry, son, you guys, and when he meant you guys, a bricklayer's labourer, you guys come 10 a penny, we'll find another one of you tomorrow. I was totally disillusioned by this. Never felt so low, if I'm being honest with you, but I used it as a motivation to really challenge the behaviours in our sectors going forward. That got me thinking. I may have been mistreated in the past, but it's not a representation of the whole sector as far as I'm concerned. And anybody who knows me on the call will know that I'll speak about vocational skills, craft skills, meta skills, digital skills, but I know a lot of other guys in the call are going to speak about that today. So I wanted to change the thinking and make it a bit wider. So how do we back the talent in the future? Well, this is my son, Daniel, and this is my son, Jack. This is the both of them together. Now, as you can see, one of them's already a budding construction worker. He loves getting his hands on diggers, bricks, anything he can, anything to do with construction and be like his dad. And it's important for us to remember that this is a talent in the future. This is the talent in the construction sector, or at least the potential talent of the construction sector. And I'm asking us to remember that this is someone's precious child. As an employer, we are entrusted with them, to care for them, to nurture them, to inspire them, and to support them. Without a feeling of physical and psychological safety, it will be more difficult for them to develop their infinite potential and therefore actually gain the skills needed to meet the demand of their sector. Someone's precious child is a statement from Bob Chapman. It resonates strongly with me. And as you can see, I'm a proud father of two boys that I hope enter into the construction sector in the future. Inspiration. You know, how can we do this? As I say, how can we challenge some of the behaviours? How can we challenge some of the leadership we see? Now, there's some people out there doing a great job. I want to share some of them with you. I've had the pleasure of meeting a number of these people through Tiger's ICANN programme. And ICANN stands for Inspiring, Compassionate, Nurturing, Authentic Mentorship Programme. It's a big title to say, so you need to forgive me. You'll see some guys on there from their sector, and some not. Guys like Stuart Parker and Steve Slessor. I know Steve's moved into a new role recently as well. You've got Ian Smith, Keegan Smith Law, and Niven Rennie. If you don't know Ian and Niven, I'd get following them on Twitter. Hugely influential, I believe. We also have I Will, Inspiring Women in Leadership. Again, we've got some women for the sector, some not. We've got Gemma Gourley of Robertson's, and we've got Crystal Morgan of Morgan Sindel. Again, Crystal's recently moved into a new role. I'd also recommend Twitter, looking at Claire Morgan and Nadine Martin. And what is common amongst all 8 of these people, as far as I'm concerned? All of them I've had the pleasure of meeting. All of them can openly talk about their emotions. All of them can contain and support people. All of them show human leadership, not management. Most importantly for me, and I jumped a bit ahead, so apologies, is all of them understand the power of positive relationships. For me, they are the agents of change. In fact, everybody on this call can be an agent of change if we can really put relationships at the heart of everything we do. Thank you for listening to me. I hope that resonated with some of you in the call. I look forward to answering any questions you may have. Thank you.
Wow, Brian, that was really powerful. I know I do actually follow Ian on Twitter, and I know that some of the people that you put up there are very inspirational, as are you, with sharing your story with us today. So we're now about to move over to a poll question. So as I said, it will come up on your screen and you'll have 30 seconds to answer it. So in what capacity are you involved in apprenticeships? Is it as an apprentice, an employer, a training provider, or are you from another representative group? Okay, that's interesting. So it's came up 45% are from training providers, and we've got 27% employers. Very interesting to see that we don't have apprentices on today, probably because they're too busy working, and 27% are from other groups. So it's really good to see that employers are on today, because I hope that what they'll get from this session today, particularly from our guests, is why, you know, the value of taking on an apprentice and the things that they can do. Now we're about to hear from Lewis Gale. Lewis Gale is the Meta Skills Development Manager at Skills Development Scotland. His work focuses on exploring, testing and scaling methods to develop future-focused skills on competencies via Scotland's apprenticeship programme. Lewis's background is in the creative industries and in further education. Hi, Lewis.
Hi, Kay. Thanks, Kay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me along. It's great to have the opportunity to speak to you all today. Let me just get my slide deck going. Okay, I hope I'm showing the right slide here. Maybe somebody on the
Hi, Lewis. We're seeing your next slide. So if you could just, try the display setting again.
Great, thank you.
Still
Is that better?
Yep, there we are. Just a slight delay.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. No problem. So yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for having me along. My name is Lewis Gale. I am Meta Skills Development Manager at Skills Development Scotland. It's a post that I've held now for about 18 months, and like Kay said, prior to that, I've sort of come from the college sector where I did some business development work, did some work around the kind of innovation piece on a project called Future Equipped, and prior to that, I did a bit of apprenticeship delivery myself. So definitely got a kind of a good kind of understanding of what this is like on the front line, and it's a really great opportunity to be able to work on the Meta Skills programme with Skills Development Scotland to see how we can bring this new model in and scale it up within Scotland. So what I'm going to talk about today is what's kind of driving the programme, and then how our Meta Skills programme has evolved over the past sort of 4 years now. Some of the early stakeholder feedback and benefits that we've realized through the pilot work that we've been doing. And then lastly, just talk you through how we've gone about identifying meta skills through our apprenticeship development work. So why meta skills? Well, put simply, the world of work is changing, our world is changing. When we initially started this piece of work, it was really driven by the concept of Industry 4.0 and the way in which technology was having an impact on the world and the sort of needs and sort of in terms of skills in the workforce. But I think over time, that's now kind of expanded to really think about any kind of transformative change, of which there's numerous kind of drivers, be that sort of, the social demographic shifts that maybe sort of Brexit will kind of have as a kind of consequence of that, the climate emergency and the kind of increased focus on how we change and adapt in order to kind of move towards the net zero position, and obviously, as we're all kind of sick of hearing about, but very kind of powerfully illustrating just how radically we can change and how much capacity we have to change, in terms of what we're capable of, and the coronavirus pandemic's really showed us just how quickly and transformatively we can change when we have to. And the question is, can we kind of continue some of that momentum and kind of continue to innovate and move forward in the way that we have over the past year? What does that mean then? Change is the big driver. What that means for the workforce is, as those skills needs evolve and as the sort of the workplace evolves, then it's going to be we really need to develop that ability to kind of to learn, to reskill, to adapt, to unlearn what we know already in order to make space to learn new ways of doing things. And similarly, if we think about the kind of technology lens, then it's really the idea that while, a lot of these technologies to drive kind of innovation and new ways of doing things already exist, but what we need to kind of work out is what are the human capabilities and competencies that allow us to really unlock and take advantage of those opportunities, and to really position, humans and as kind of an integral part of that relationship between us and the sort of technologies there that can make our lives a little bit easier. So it's really that preparedness for an ever-changing world that's driving the work that we do on meta skills, and that's something, like I said, that's become ever more sort of pressing over the past 12 months. In terms of this next slide, it's really just a potted history that tracks the evolution of the meta skills program since our work began in SDS around 2016. At the heart of the development of the model has been a really rigorous international kind of research process, which we've then translated into the Scottish context by testing, evolving and iterating our approach as we go. And as our thinking and the model has developed, we've been very careful to test what we're doing with an international community of experts and employers through various roundtable events, case studies, and the Centre of Work-Based Learning Symposium. And it's all about making sure that we're aligned to leading thinking in this space and that it represents something progressive. And so out of all of that, we arrive at the meta skills model that Skills Development Scotland's developed and spoken about in the Skills 4.0 paper that was published in 2018. What we've got are 12 skills that have been captured usefully under 3 high-level headings. That is self-management, those which are kind of internal and intrinsic in their nature. And if we think about how change brings complexity and noise and distraction, then the ability to remain on task, to be flexible and be able to demonstrate initiative as you sort of navigate that very changing landscape is really important. As is social intelligence, the ability to kind of demonstrate competencies which are maybe more external and intrinsic in their nature. If we think about how we connect with the world around us and the way in which our sort of society and our demographics are changing, then the ability to really work across disciplines and empathize with others is really, really critical. And lastly then, something that we're all kind of having to sort of look at a lot more is our role as agents of change. How do we not just sort of fall victim to change, rather how do we take control of the opportunities or the challenges that are in front of us and really kind of turn them into something that we have a little bit more control over. So that's our model, and that's my focus within Skills Development Scotland, is looking at how do we introduce that into the apprenticeship system. As part of that, what we've been doing over the past couple of years is piloting it in various sort of products from within the apprenticeship family. And these are some of the kind of early benefits that we've started to kind of realize. I think there's a massive kind of understanding across the literature that that in addition to technical skills, human capabilities are really the kind of in this kind of unpredictability that we're looking into in the future. Human capabilities have a much more evergreen value to them, and so while skills needs may change and evolve naturally, the capabilities that we have at the meta level will have much greater endurance and resilience within that changing world. From the point of view of the learners, in that second example there, it's a really interesting one in terms of two graduate apprentices from very different backgrounds. One is doing early years in childcare, the other one's doing software engineering, but both were able to make the connection between sort of the role of meta skills and their ability to solve problems in the work that they're doing. And that's a good kind of illustration of the fact that while we've got this model of 12 skills, it's not that they exist in isolation from each other, rather they kind of combine and cluster in order to become sort of competencies that help you sort of solve problems, adapt and be resilient in the work that you do. And lastly, from the point of view of learning providers, and I think this kind of really, the point that Brian made about sort of showing compassion and understanding and how do we really get the best out of our learners. I think some of the examples that we've realized through our kind of training provider feedback and the pilots is very much the approach to meta skills and the focus on these kind of softer future focused capabilities really allows us to sort of focus in at the individual level and really individualize the learner journey. And that's something that's sort of surfaced through the work that we've done and something that we're kind of keen to enhance and kind of really include in the approach that we take moving forward. So really putting the learner at the heart of the development process is sort of a big focus there. Last thing I want to very quickly cover is how do we go about identifying meta skills? Obviously, we're all kind of comfortable with the terms, but some of our early feedback was, well, yes, we get it, but maybe it's difficult to kind of really contextualize this in our workplace. So we've developed a very simple tool that we use as part of the process for developing new apprenticeships, one of which that we worked on over the past year is electrical installation. And this is the tool that we use to just understand 3 data points, and this is something I can share with anybody that wants to take a look at it after the session today. But essentially what we do is, rather than providing the language to define these things, we work with employees in a particular occupation to have them co-develop a language that we can then use as a reference point that's more operational and allows these skills to come to life in the workplace. The second thing that we do to try and understand how and where and sort of how important proportionally each of the skills are to success in a particular occupation, we just try and find out and develop this sort of spiky profile, which gives us an idea of how frequently or not each of these things is required to be used to be effective. And lastly, in order to support people sort of identifying opportunities to develop them or to sort of evidence that they're using them, then what we ask is for people to provide us with example situations so that you can go and find opportunities to develop them. And this has been a really effective tool that we've used with employees. We've validated it with the employers. And what it's allowed us to do is take a snapshot of occupations through the meta-skills lens and feed that into our new apprenticeship developments to bring those to life in our new products, which will start to sort of filter through over the next couple of years. So I'm conscious that I've run out of time, so I will just quickly move to my last slide, and I will hand back over to Kay. So this is what I wanted to leave you with. The program on meta-skills is very much about us creating this system level, this nationwide approach to developing high-performing individuals and businesses. Exactly like Brian said, getting the best out of every individual so that that then feeds through into a very prosperous economy. We want to create the capability to respond positively to change and be resilient, and ultimately a kind of open hand to everybody on the call today. We want to work collaboratively with our stakeholders in the skills system to really implement this model and support a thriving Scottish economy, which is particularly important in the post-COVID recovery landscape. So thanks for having me. If you want to reach out to me, there are my details, and I'll hand back to Kay. Thanks.
Thank you, Lewis. I think it's really heartening to see when we hear from you, Lewis, and we hear from Brian, we can see the connections about individuals' capabilities in building resilience, and it's good to see that Tigers are doing it and that SDS are really pushing forward the idea of building resilience and looking at, you know, the individual and their skills moving forward for the future and what the landscape will be in the future. In terms of looking at what the landscape will be in the future around construction, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Dave. Even although it's Scottish Apprenticeship Week, Dave is from Bedford College, one of our neighbours, and Dave is going to tell us all about the exciting work that Bedford College are doing. Just to give you some background, David has been working in further education for 20 years. He started as the head of the Department for Construction at Bedford College in 2008, and in 2018, during the merger, he became part of the senior leadership team. He is now the Director of Construction and Building Services, leading staff around curriculum development and delivery over multiple campuses. Welcome, David.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate that. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yep, we can see it fine. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Just to double check. Okay, so just a quick introduction with regard to the Bedford College Group. We're a group of colleges in the South East Midlands area where we have campuses in Corby, Bedford, Kettering area. So we cover quite a wide range of training for young people and all ages, in fact, in the South East Midlands. We've embarked recently on a superb project to bring modern methods of construction training to the Bedford campus. which is where I'm currently transmitting from, to introduce a whole new range of training, hopefully meeting the future requirements of the construction industry at our Bedford campus. So what's made us do this then? What's made us move into this sort of arena? So we've had a look most recently over the past few years about responding to government need, government requirement, and also that of the construction industry. So you can see there on the screen the main reports which have been taken place over the last few years, which have steered the direction, and our strategy is very much about responding to government requirements, but also responding to the needs of the construction industry as well. Also, you can have a look there. One of the government white papers with regard to fixing our broken housing market chimes quite strongly in the Bedford area. And also the fact that we're 40 minutes away from London, so a lot of the people that we house do live and work in London. So we are quite in the need for local housing. So modern methods and off-site construction is a way to rectify that, as you're quite probably aware. We use local LMI data and SEMLEP data, also from the CITB, to be able to help us steer where we need to go in regard to our training, as a lot of FE colleges do as well. And also most recently the government FE white paper on skills for jobs, which I shall touch on at the end, is quite prominent in this as well. So with regard to funding the centre, our local enterprise partnership, SEMLEP, gave us some £2.9 million, which is their Get In Building Fund. And it's great, really, because they've funded another local college in the area to improve their facilities, not with regard to modern methods of construction, but overall, it's really great to see some investment in FE, and it's really warmly welcomed. On top of that, our organisational reserves to the tune of £1.4 million, as well as our fundraising so far, we've managed to secure £750,000 at least for machinery and equipment for the centre as well. We started this project last October, and anyone in the construction industry will know that it's quite tight, because we're planning to open this September coming. So we're moving very, very quickly on this. So a very quick whistle-stop tour, picture show on where we are. That's the existing facility, which we're looking to change into the MMC Centre, and that currently holds bricklaying, carpentry, etc. So they're standard workshops that we use. We're very clear on not removing our existing provision, because traditional skills are very, very much in need around this area too. So the new Modern Methods of Construction Centre will certainly complement it. So the picture I took yesterday can show that the steels are pretty much in, and we're halfway there. You can see in the background the gantry crane that's been fitted for this new centre as well. And eventually that is what it will look like. So a real great change to the landscape, and some lovely facilities for our learners to move into as and when we open it in September. Also, the MMC and Offsite Centre, that large raised area at the end of that building, will have the gantry crane fitted in it. That will enable us to be able to teach the assembly of timber and light steel panels, as well as basic volumetric units construction and pod construction. We are installing a new CAD suite in there, and we're also having a CNC machine, timber panel manufacturing line, and a light steel profiling machine. So that's where we're going there. And also we're moving our materials testing lab, which will, all of that will complement our existing curriculum where that's concerned on that one. So yeah, so let me just move on once more. Bear with me a minute, it's stopped working. There we go. Yeah, so how does it complement our existing provision and facilities? So we've already got an HE centre for engineering and construction, which we've got plenty of HNCs, HNDs and higher apprenticeships in construction, civil engineering, mechanical and electrical engineering, manufacturing, robotics, etc. So there's some great synergy with regard to the latest technology in manufacturing and engineering to move into our MMC offsite centre as well. So in addition to that, we also have a £250,000 active wall. So we've got an immersive learning suite, which we're looking to purchase additional software for, to very much focus on the latest training that we're engaging in. Our curriculum, very simply, we're obviously starting 3T level routes from September, which will assist. And we're looking at initially 2 key apprenticeships as part of this proposed curriculum, and that's the construction assembly and installation operative, and also the digital engineering technician. So very much CAD and BIM focused there. And we have other apprenticeships level 3, including the likes of surveying, which will really complement this offer. We're also looking, and also I've started the work on this in partnering with employers and manufacturers to deliver a full end-to-end support program and a commercial offer that we can offer within our campus to be able to upskill and reskill elements of the industry who are moving into this manufacturing or off-site assembly arena. So that's that. A bit further ahead, we're looking at some additional level 4 and level 6 higher and degree apprenticeships, which I think are really, really important around this area, and nationally, in fact, as an alternative route to a degree program in university. So how are we going to deliver the curriculum? Quite simply, we've got skills within our existing staff, trade skills, etc., technical and professional skills and design skills among my existing staff. I'm upskilling my staff and embarking on some new upskilling for my staff, as well as close collaboration with manufacturers, employers, industry experts, etc., as I already said. Okay, so just to finalise then, I think looking at how do we address these future skills requirements in partnership between FE and employers and manufacturers. I think initially in FE we need to start integrating our MMC and offsite concepts within our existing trade study programs. So your carpenters, your bricklayers, your painting and decorators understand and accept that offsite is the way forward with regard to MMC. I also think there's several conversations that I've engaged in, and I think if we can bring that together into a sector group somehow to have a collaboration between FE providers interested in working in the MMC field and training within it, and bringing your MMC manufacturers together to create one conversation to drive the FE agenda towards MMC, but also consider pushing the additional requirements for apprenticeship standards that are needed in this area. As I said, there's only a few applicable ones, but you know, there is room for more relating to offsite and MMC. Finally, employers and manufacturers need to review their approved apprenticeship standards and obviously encourage the recruitment of these learners onto these programs. One example is the timber frame element of the assembly operative. A lot of employers still use the site carpentry standard, so something much more applicable to MMC would be useful for an apprenticeship standard. And then finally, I think generating the partnerships between FE and specific employers to continue that conversation of upskilling and reskilling for MMC and offsite, and really get into the schools and promote the offsite industry as a real way into the construction industry. And there's loads of great work being done on that as well, but I think a good drive on that will be really beneficial for the construction industry moving forward. And I think when we consider about employer engagement, I think using the skills for jobs white paper as a perfect vehicle, it's not so much about employer engagement, it's all about employer integration into your training. So that's a very quick whistle stop stop talks. I'm very conscious of my time as well. So those are my contact details there. And if anyone wants to drop me a line, they are more than welcome to do so. My email address is there. I can provide more information about what we're doing at Bedford College in relation to developing these apprenticeships in MMC and offsite, and I'll happily have a conversation with anyone that wants to get engaged. Likewise with employers and manufacturers, please don't hesitate. And I think I'm just about done, so I'll hand back over to Kay. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Dave. That was really, really worthwhile looking at, and I'm sure everyone on today is really looking forward to seeing how things progress, especially, you know, whether you meet the deadline for September next year, and looking forward to following it in social media and seeing the opening of the site. Now we're about to move over to our next poll. Again, just like the last one, it will come up on the screen for 30 seconds and you'll be able to answer it. So which area of apprenticeships would you like to know more about? What types of apprenticeships are there? What support is out there for employers to take on an apprentice? What is the process of taking on an apprentice? Or how do you recruit an apprentice? Okay, that's quite interesting. So it's came up 50% what support is out there for employers to take on an apprentice. What we'll actually do is we'll provide links to the SDS website and various information at the end of the session so you can find out more, and also what types of apprenticeships are there. So you found out a little bit more about the construction craft apprenticeships and more about the modern methods of construction off-site apprenticeships that are coming forward as well. But again, SDS website is very much the best place to find out about these things. So I don't want to say we leave the best for last, but as it is, you know, Apprenticeship Week, I'm delighted to say that we also have an apprentice to come and talk to us today. Alana Carey is a surveying apprentice who works for BAM Construction. Hi, Alana.
Hi, good morning. Let me just share my screen. Yeah, so I am an apprentice quantity surveyor for BAM Construction, currently in my second year, and I'm just going to speak a bit about how I got into my apprenticeship, why I chose to do it, and what my role involves so far. So my route into construction was pretty much straight from high school. I went to St Andrews High School in Coatbridge, S1, S6, and it was in my 6th year that I decided that I wanted to do quantity surveying with the help from my school careers advisor. She kind of recommended that I did some work experience, so I done this with a house builder company, Barrett Homes, where I was basically there for a week shadowing a senior QS, and there was also an apprentice who was in 2nd year at the time, and I was working with him and just seeing what he did on a daily basis. So that kind of, after that week, made me realise that that is what I wanted to do. So I started applying for apprenticeships and also university after that. I also attended an open door event for BAM Construction, which was for one of our sites in Glasgow, which was basically like anyone could apply to go and see a bit of like behind the scenes of what was going on site, and I also met Claire Anderson that day, who is our community education coordinator at BAM, and she told me that BAM were hiring, how to apply, and everything like that. So that was a good event, which I'm glad that I went to. Then after that, I started hearing back from unis. I got 3 unconditional offers for quantity surveying courses, and also went for a few other interviews with construction employers, and found out that my interview was successful, so I was over the moon about that. My journey as apprentice quantity surveyor so far, in my 1st year, I was helping surveyors in the office and on sites with a variety of tasks, looking at a mix of projects at different stages, new builds, refurbs, pre-construction, during construction stage, and after. I also took part in an Enhancing Lives team challenge, which was me and the 3 guys that were on the picture at the start went down to Birmingham for a few nights and met up with all the other apprentices that BAM have in the other regions of the UK. And then after it, we were given a kind of challenge to come away with. So that was a good week. And also attended events such as STEM Fest and other construction and engineering events, which were really good to talk to kids and just tell them like that there is other apprenticeships that you can get within the construction industry, and that's an event that I think I would have really enjoyed to have went to while I was at school. And yeah, also I've completed my first year as a GA student at Edinburgh and Napier. Since my second year, I have been working from home since around March last year. I was on furlough for about 6 months. But back now and working in a team of 3 on a project for North Lanarkshire Council, which is Newmains and St Bridget's Primary. So looking forward to get out and onto site for that once that starts later this year. And I've also completed 2 out of 3 blocks of my second year at Edinburgh and Napier. So why join construction? I always enjoyed studying maths and geography, so I knew that I wanted a job kind of in either of these or that involved a bit of both of these. And I've always had interests in buildings and landmarks. For example, I've visited Empire State in New York, and I've also visited CN Tower in Toronto, Canada, which were amazing. I think that the construction industry is constantly developing, which means my job will never get boring. You have the opportunity to do this job all around the world. You can move between projects and locations. The skills that I learn here are transferable into many other industries, and also female family members. Yeah, so I have an older cousin who's recently graduated as a QS, and she kind of said that she loves it, that like it's a job that I would really like, and that it's okay to be a female in the construction industry. So why the apprenticeship route? This route appealed to me much more than full-time university because it means that I can earn my degree and a wage at the same time. And as I mentioned, it was recommended by older cousins and family friends. I can take what I've learned at uni and put into practice at work, which I think will strengthen my knowledge and development. As well, I will have 4 years of work experience by the time I'm finished my degree. And I really enjoy doing it this way because I get to work with experienced and knowledgeable colleagues of all positions that are willing to help me at any time. And yeah, I think that's me. Feel free to ask any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Alana. Like we said at the start of the session today, if anyone has any questions, they can enter them in the panel over there, and all of our panel will try and answer. So just to start off, Alana, a question here has come up, and it's asking you about, a young woman working in the built environment. What would you say to maybe young people who are at that stage in school, 5th or 6th year, particularly maybe young females who are thinking about going to work in the built environment? What route should they take? Where should they go? I know you'd mentioned it in your presentation. How would they go about taking on getting a graduate apprenticeship?
So, for example, events like the STEM Fest, I think that they were really good to kind of find out about the apprenticeships. And I can remember that it was advertised while I was at school, like on a door in my maths class, and I had said to the teacher, like, oh, how do you get about like getting to go to that? And she was like, oh, that event was yesterday and we just kind of chose a handful of boys to go. Do you know what I mean? So I think asking and getting involved with events like that would be really good. And as well, what I'd done was just sign up for job updates and stuff from like construction companies, and then if any apprenticeships came up, I could see them that way, like through an email. And also the apprenticeship.scot website I was looking at regularly and applying for apprenticeships through there as well. So
what would you say then right now? So it's this idea of being proactive then. You have to be proactive and you have to really go out and find out about it. Yeah. and it's really interesting. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, there's also like girls that were a few years below me in school, and they've recently like contacted me saying, how did you go about like getting that? Because she's a girl and she wanted to get an apprenticeship in engineering.
Yeah.
So she was just like, how did you get that? And as well, like companies I've seen at the time when I was looking, a lot of them advertised for like diversity and stuff like that. So just really signing up for events, getting involved, and checking on like contractor like websites and stuff, and the websites such as apprenticeship.scot were always really useful.
Thanks, Alana. That's really helpful, really helpful. Brian, a question for you, and I suppose it goes back to something that Alana was talking about there as well, about the benefits of work-based learning. You know, a lot of young people think it's all about leaving school and trying to get into university or trying to get into college. But I suppose what we're seeing now is there's this shift, particularly with Alana's story, of work-based learning has huge benefits as well. So what would you say are the benefits to work-based learning?
Okay, I'm going to speak about it, if you don't mind. I'm going to speak first of all about work-based learning within school. So, for example, the new craft pilot, which has been rolled out at level 4 or 5 within the school curriculum, and the foundation apprenticeships, that really bridges the gap between education and employment for me. It's giving young people the opportunity to learn skills for the workplace, whilst also offering the opportunity to engage with employers, therefore setting standards. They know what it's like to, you know, work to say systems of work for McTaggart's Construction, for example, who we partnership with, and with them in Lock End. Same for foundation apprenticeships as they complete their SVQ units on site. For apprenticeships such as modern apprenticeships, graduate apprenticeships, for me, it's earn whilst you learn. You're earning a wage, you know, while still getting a great education. You know, whether it be from a graduate level as a graduate apprentice or modern apprenticeship level through your SVQ. And that, for me, again, provides social mobility. It's young people leaving school and getting into a position where they're now earning money. They can go and enjoy themselves at the weekend. You know, they can go and start to look at buying a home, they can save money. And I think that's a big influence. It's a positive influence for me. With what apprenticeships bring to society. Thanks,
Brian. And I suppose it's going back to, again, the whole meta skills thing around the idea that when they're learning, they're working and they're getting employability skills at the same time. Lewis, and I suppose that's why SDS is so keen in bringing forward the idea of meta skills as well. And it's not just about occupational technical skills.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I think the kind of point I would reiterate is we're looking into the future and we're not 100% sure of what it's going to look like. So in order to make people more resilient in the face of all of that, then by focusing on the skills that allow them to be more confident, to be more aware of kind of how to maybe take technical skills and reapply them into a different area or into a new opportunity, then we're doing much more to help young people and kind of our apprentices to have a chance to really kind of drive the future and be empowered to do so. I think, you know, one of the construction employers that I spoke to about a year back was kind of talking about how, as an SME, he really wanted to depend on the kind of young sort of future workforce that he was bringing up to be drivers of the change, to introduce those new technologies into the business so that he can kind of continue to grow. So I think our work on meta skills is very much about, you know, that kind of having an open mind, being able to kind of take new opportunities and also take those existing technical skills and sort of redeploy them into a different opportunity.
Yeah, and I suppose that's where you come in, Dave, because you're talking about the new centre that you'll be building, but you'll still have the construction craft alongside, you know, the new work looking at offsite. And I suppose what that's doing is it's bridging the gap, isn't it? And it's showing the brickworkers and it's showing, you know, those who are working in craft at the moment that this is the future, and that there's no fear there, you know, because their skills and what they do right now will be needed, you know, when these things are applied.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much about the flexibility of an individual when they enter in the industry, you know, and being able and resilient enough to react to any changes that they need to encounter when they embark on an apprenticeship. And then in the world of work, once achieved and fully qualified, it's all about the resilience, and it's all about reacting to change. And obviously, if we're able to undertake training for the future as well as the traditional trades, as you quite rightly say, Kay, you know, nothing will become as a surprise, and nothing will be out the realms of an individual embarking into the construction industry.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we're getting from the session today around, you know, Apprenticeship Week is really about investing in the individual, and actually seeing it as, you know, when companies are taking on a person, it's not about getting them to do an extra bit of work or do some training with them, but it is all about investing in that individual and understanding that not only will they be able to contribute in the workplace right now, but what they'll really, you know, be able to do in the future and how they can influence it. Would you agree, Brian?
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think I alluded to it within, you know, the presentation. We're trying to build a future workforce here, and you know, it can't be a blanket approach. We're going to be working with individuals from a multitude of different backgrounds. You know, some from probably, you know, some maybe come from trauma. So we're going to understand the individual person that we're trying to support and inspire to really develop that infinite potential for what to meet the future demands of your sector. So that's why a person-centered approach is really important to me. It's about providing that wraparound support for the individual, not the group. You know, and ultimately, that for me is what's going to help us achieve a lot of the great things that are lying ahead for our sector.
Yeah. And I think, Alana, just listening to you and hearing about your journey before you moved into your graduate apprenticeship, it's interesting to see that, you know, it was a cousin and it was a family friend that got you involved in that, and it's making those connections, but it's also trying to figure out a way of how do we get out there to the young people that don't have those influencers around. And that's where I suppose people like yourself, Alana, going on to webinars today, going out to schools, are speaking as an ambassador for BAM. These things are really, really important in terms of, you know, bringing diversity into our sector and getting the workforce that we want, that's going to bring about the change that we're discussing today. So unfortunately, we're running out of time here, but I just want to say it's been a fascinating discussion with a really, really interesting panel today. And as I've said at the start of the session, if anyone has any questions or wants further information from any of our guest panelists today, please let us know and you can get in touch with them. So just to say thanks to the audience for joining today, and, you know, a huge thanks to our technical team. You don't see them, but Danielle and Kirsty are in the background and they make all of this possible. So thanks once again. So we've posted some PDFs and down relevant links to give you more information. But if there's any other information that you want from our guest panelists at the end, please get in touch. So I'd just like to say thank you to everyone that have watched us, and thank you to our panelists. Have a good day, and hopefully the rest of the Scottish Apprenticeship Week will be as good as this. Thank you.